Here's what's wrong and what's right about the Forever Purge. Long story short, Juan and Adela escaped the Mexican drug cartels by illegally crossing the border into Texas. 10 months later, Adela works for a butcher, while Juan and his friend TT work as ranch hands for the Tuckers. Dad Caleb is nice, son Dylan doesn't like Mexicans.
I don't even know if I want our kids speaking Spanish in this house.
On Purge night, Juan, TT, and Adela go to a protected shelter, while the Tuckers hide behind the secure walls of their ranch house. The next day, the purge is ended, or so they think.
This is the Forever Purge. It's never stopping.
This is the real purge, an eternal purge. Ever after!
The Tuckers and the Adela Juan TT trio all join forces, put differences aside, and make a go for the Mexican border, which is open for 6 hours to people seeking asylum. On the way, they are relentlessly attacked, eventually having to go on foot in El Paso. A group of Native Americans help them get across the border, and there's one last stand against a purification force. They finally cross into Mexico and are dubbed American Dreamers as the United States collapses into genuine anarchy. Roll credits. First things first, pretend the Purge election year didn't happen. That 2016 film was supposed to be the final chapter in the Purge trilogy. It even ended with the new president of the United States banning the Purge. One TV series and 2 films later, and the Forever Purge dismisses all that in its opening credits.
The NFFA voted back into power again.
The new founding fathers immediately reinstate the Purge.
From the way everyone talks about it, it sounds like the Purge has been back for a while. Here's a minorly inconvenienced Dylan.
Oh, I hate the damn purge. It's hard to be social on that night.
Even TT is casual.
The day after the purge should be a holiday. Huh?
It makes one wonder just how long ago the NFFA regained power. 4 years ago? Last week? Was the administration ousted in 6 months? It's important to know because honestly, why on earth would Adela and Juan cross the border? It's already been established in election year that the whole world knows about Purge Night, with murder tourists coming from overseas to take part. Maybe A and J figured out one night of survival was a fair trade against a whole lifetime of fighting against the cartels. But wouldn't they have to live among people who want to kill them either way? You'd think they would have factored a proudly anti-immigrant, pro-murder government into their decision. You gotta hand it to the filmmakers though. The depiction of that hatred is effective. On Purge Night, Adela might be safe behind the walls of the shelter, but she also witnesses a convoy led by a huge truck labeled Purge Purification Force.
We will find you and disinfect you. America will be American once again.
You don't know what's happening, and you don't want to. The horror of the unknown is enough. When the Purge is supposed to have ended, Adela gets caught in a complex trap worthy of the Saw films, terrorized by men in bunny masks. Why? I don't know, but I wish it was sillier than it winds up being. Would you want bunny men standing over you while a bolt pistol gets closer and closer to your eye, all while a bleating goat watches? No, you wouldn't. And later, when Adela is falsely accused of being a forever purger and locked in the back of a police van with actual forever purgers, the movie's greatest moment comes in a monologue from a neo-Nazi with a gun fetish.
Listen to that rhythm. That is a clock. Listen to that bass. Double barrel shotgun. AK-47. Homegrown music from the heartland right there. That is American music.
These are the scenes that leave you with a vivid sensation of helplessness and terror, and with a hateful rhetoric that's too familiar to dismiss as mere fiction. Neo-Nazis and racists aren't the only forever purgers. Kirk, the lone white ranch hand working with Juan and TT, gathers a gang and holds the Tucker family hostage. His grievance? Wealth disparity.
Well, switcheroo's happening on every ranch around here. You and all your rich-ass neighbors will find out what it's like to be penniless and powerless. To be like us!
While most of the purgers we meet want to eradicate non-whites for a pure America,
help us purify this nation once and for all. That's what the Ever After Purge is all about.
Kirk's part of a class revolution. It's the first time the movie suggests that there can be a reason for social unrest beyond racial prejudice. It's also the last time, and it carefully frames not having enough as a petty white grievance. Ranch patriarch Caleb calls it out.
You're talking about life in America. The way the rich get rich off the backs of the poor. The way it's been ever since we robbed this land from the Native Americans. But you got no right to complain about the very system you're supporting by picking up that gun and sanctioning the goddamn purge.
Both characters are quickly dispensed with. It's a moment of complexity that is never dealt with after. In fact, it's a kind of weird that the arguments Kirk makes about the exploitation of the poor by the wealthy is so quickly waved off. It's been a running theme of the franchise for years. Even the opening sequence of the first film makes reference to the Purge being a night where the poor are left to the whims of the violent. That's like the whole plot. Now, the have-nots get to flip the script. It's quickly dismissed as a petty grievance, their actions born of ignorance. Is it tasteless to consider the source, series writer James DeMonaco, who penned all 5 films and directed the first 3? On one hand, he's made a conscious effort to address hot-button socio-political topics in each of the movies. On the other hand, the combined box office gross of all the films in the franchise is almost 10 times the combined budget. When you're making that kind of profit, you too would probably second-guess your well-intended speech about the gap between the rich and the poor. We'll say this, though. The almost simultaneous deaths of Caleb Tucker and Kirk mark the Forever Purge's strengths. You never know who will die or when. DeMonaco has said he sees these as more dystopian thrillers than horror, and the relative lack of bloodshed attests to that. Okay, relative in terms of how many good guys get it, we mean. So while many of the bad guys are off gruesomely, the good guys get away unscathed for the most part. Adela's boss Darius runs off to find his family, never to be seen again, but we don't see him killed either. The leader of the indigenous group helping them across the border, Thiago, sees a lot of action.
We've been fighting this fight for 500 years.
Even makes himself a visible target by speaking against the Purge on TV, and he too is spared. Maybe 2 good guys in the whole movie get killed. One of them a noble self-sacrifice, the other in a senseless moment of violence, but that's the point. No one suffers a pointless death. Instead, each killer furthers the movie's point about every person's capacity for violence and hatred. That propensity for violence is showcased in the El Paso sequence, a continuous 2-minute and 20-second shot that sees our heroes dodging bullets, facing explosions, sneaking through the streets and diners, and taking out crazed purgers. All while the military, in the distance but always present, carves a path of destruction all its own. It ends in a tank shell explosion that separates Adela and the very pregnant Cassie from the rest, leaving them in a movie theater where, somehow, an old 35mm print of the 1931 Dracula eerily plays to an empty house, though film nerds know the dialogue does not match the footage. From beginning to end, one of the best sequences of the year, whose scale, chaos, and sense of geography seems even more remarkable when one considers the film's relatively low budget of $18 million. For comparison's sake, watch the riot sequence in the $58 million Reminiscence from Warner Brothers. Less a riot than a neighborhood block party that gets slightly out of hand. What the Purge films do with action on tight budgets is not to be dismissed so easily. The movie's greatest strength is also its greatest weakness, Juan and Adela. The filmmakers and actors Tenoch Huerta and Ana de la Reguera really sell you on their relationship. They take the time to show the love between the two, their separate adjustments to life in the US.
You need to practice your English.
When in Rome.
When in America.
And the way they lean on and understand each other, even from a distance.
When Mexicans leave signs all over the city to help each other. Adela is following them. If we want to find our wives, we should do the same thing.
It's here. If our men are alive, they will be here.
But as the movie develops, they're also the ones who expose the biggest cracks. For one thing, what's their last name? A small detail, but look at the end credits. Even Alpha Leader is suddenly given the name Elijah Hardin. But Juan, Adela, and TT, those are just name tags on employees. They exist to serve the Tucker family and their journey. Nowhere is that more obvious than in the hopeful ending when they cross the border. Remind us again why Adela and Juan left in the first place?
Mexicans flee cartel violence, seeking the American dream.
Well, there's parts of Mexico that sound like this every night. I was part of the autodefensas.
What?
A group of women fighting the cartels. We did damage to them. They forced me and Juan off our land. This is how we got here, to the States.
Even though the USA is now collapsed, there's nothing to show that the situation with the cartels got any better. They're still running, no matter what side of the border they're on. Risking their lives for the Tuckers may have taught the boss to be less racist.
Gracias, Juan. Muchas gracias, Adela.
And given new hope to the wealthy white ranchers. But there's still danger for Adela and Juan, even as it tries to correct and reverse old tropes. The Forever Purge can't help but fall into the same Hollywood traps of ultimately disregarding its non-white characters. Will those traps be corrected in the next one? because you know there's going to be a next one. Just before the Forever Purge's release, producer Jason Blum told outlets he'd make a sixth Purge if DeMonaco wrote it. And sure enough, despite initially insisting that this would be the for real honest-to-God final chapter in the Purge series, DeMonaco confirmed a script for a new one. And Frank Grillo, star of The Purge Anarchy and The Purge Election Year, confirmed that he is set to return. Like we said, Hollywood won't let a good thing die. Look how many times they've resurrected and retconned the many deaths of Michael Myers. So, will this continue the story of Juan and Adela? Will it follow the threads left dangling like the class disruptors or Darius' search for his family, or how those left in America fought back against the Forever Purgers? Or will it forget about all that and just, purge? We'll find out soon enough.